Welcome to Recovery Uncovered, your all things recovery podcast. Recovery Uncovered is produced by MHAB Enterprises, a division of the Northeast Group of companies located right here in Plattsburgh, New York. I'm your host, Mike Carpenter.
Affectionately known as MHAB Mike, and I'm your co-host, Betsy Vicencio.
Affectionately known as BV the Normie. We have one goal in these podcasts, and that's not to suck. Thanks for tuning in. Talk some about recovery because we got scolded by one of our producers today that we're not talking enough about recovery. So we're going to do that.
We really should.
But let's talk about Aruba.
You want to talk about Aruba?
How was Aruba? How was your vacation?
So I will tell you that having a vacation after everything that we've been through for the past 16 months, to have time away, it was wonderful. I will tell you that it takes the better part of 7 days to even figure out how to be on vacation. It's super disorienting. Travel's a little bit disorienting. You know, really just kind of we've all been like sheltered in our little world and really limited circles. And so even to get out to an airport, you know, the Albany airport not very big, so you can kind of scoot through there and go, okay, I got this. But you know, we landed in Charlotte and there were so many people transitioning between planes. Santana and I at one point found our way to like one of the concourses where there weren't people just so we could be away because it was super disorienting to be around so many people. Gratefully, travelers that we saw were incredibly respectful for masking policies, and Aruba, the island, was really serious both about their requirements to get onto the island. There were special processes to get on.
Did you have to be vaccinated to go? I mean, you are, but did you have to be, or
no,
could you go to Aruba without?
There were no vaccination rules, although virtually everybody we met that were people that lived on the island, almost 100% of the people we met, including a couple of people that were, quite frankly, Trumpers, were all vaccinated. So that part was really interesting, but really respectful of masking processes.
Who'd you go with?
Santana and Marcia, my mother. We brought Marsh Bagarsh.
So I want to make a point that I've been making all along. You took your mother and your favorite child with you, and you left your least favorite child home and didn't get to go on vacation. Is that correct?
So let's be honest. My other favorite child, Bridget, I sent her on an almost 2 week vacation.
You sent her to Alaska by herself.
That was her lifelong dream of what she wanted to do. She doesn't like beach. She doesn't want to go to an island. She would not have had a good time on the island. She wouldn't have loved it at all. It's not her thing. It's Marcia's thing. Marcia loves the beach. She loves to be on an island. Santana loves the beach. I love to be outdoors, and I love to be on the beach. So it's just not what Bridget likes to do. Bridget wanted to go to Alaska. That was the dream she had 6 years ago before she had Rain, was to go and to spend time in Alaska, and she got to do that.
So it was good. You had a good time?
It was nice to be away. That second week, when you finally get relaxed and you kind of get to know also where you are, even though it's a small island, it takes a little bit to get oriented. It was nice to kind of settle in and relax and not feel the stress of kind of what the world has done to us over the past 15 months. So I feel much better. I was coming undone, a little bit unhinged at the end of my time before I went on vacation.
We talked about it.
Limit.
We noticed it. It was pretty the last couple weeks for you. You were pretty crispy.
It was rough. It was rough. So I feel much better.
It's obvious you don't handle stress as well as I do.
Clearly.
Because I've not been affected. This COVID pandemic hasn't bothered me.
Not
in the least. I've been really good.
Bike.
So we're supposed to be talking about recovery, and we don't have a guest today. In the hospital guy would have been great because we could have talked about the problem in healthcare, which we know is huge.
I
and
think
probably
the impact
bigger
of COVID has really impacted the healthcare industry, both hospital employees as well as nursing home employees, people that are caring for others amidst a time when we're all struggling to care for ourselves. I would love to have had that conversation with Greg Freeman today.
One of the things that while you were gone for 2 weeks, I was kind of thinking about so people don't know this, but you know this. This is Memorial Day weekend has been for the last, I think, 8 or 9 years for me, my weekend when I go to I don't call it a recovery retreat, but it's a golf tournament in Southern Virginia with 100+ guys that are all in recovery from all over the country, and it's a great event. And I didn't go this year for two reasons. One, you were gone, I didn't want to leave the business, and two, I had a family issue with somebody, so I just chose to stay home and miss it. And I really did miss it. I realized when they were gone how much I missed being there. And I think, you know, the point of that is oftentimes in recovery, we talk a lot about the work you have to do, and you got to look at your childhood trauma, and you got to deal with this, and you have to do this, and you got to be careful where you go so you don't drink or you don't get high or whatever the case is. And all of those things are incredibly important, but the rewards on the flip side of it and the fun stuff that we do is such a big component of it. And you know, I think about this, and I've now made friends from all over the country who I never would have met before by going to this golf tournament. And you know, three of the guys, there's usually 5 of us that regularly go, and 3 of them went this year, and 2 of us elected not to. And you know, when I texted them and asked them how it went, they were like, well, we made new friends and we sucked at golf, which is, you know, typically kind of the way we are. And I say that to say that I've learned how to have a really great time in recovery. And I think about you being in Aruba, and I think Bryn might have even asked me earlier, you know, I've been on a couple of cruises, and I remember the first time I went on a cruise in recovery, I hadn't been. I never really thought I would enjoy it, quite honestly. Lizzie wanted to go, so I said, okay, I'm willing to go and try it. And the irony of it is, at the end of that first cruise, I was like, my God, I loved it. My wife was like, it was okay. I didn't necessarily love it, so it's weird. And part of the reason for having a little fear, you know, anxiousness about going on the first one was there's a lot of booze. You know, that's what you hear. Oh, it's booze, free. People are drunk all the time, and the whole thing. And you know what I noticed when I was on that first cruise? There's a lot of booze. There is. I also noticed there were a lot of people who were not drinking excessively. You had your pocket of them, you know, sure. the people who are just there to be on a drunken binge for 7 or 8 days. You had a lot of them who might have a beer or two with dinner or whatever the case was, and then the irony of it is, you know, as a 12-stepper, which is what I am, when you walk in on a cruise ship, they have a board, and the board kind of lists events, like not the official cruise events, but things that people can put up for messages. So if you're going to have like a card game or something, you can put it up on the board, and there's a thing up there that says FOB. Meets in the card room or whatever, you know, every day at 10 a.m. And so for most people, they go FOB, I have no idea who those guys are. For those of us that are kind of in 12-step programs, we know that means Friends of Bill. So you go to these, and we wound up, on the first cruise, it was quite small. There were only maybe 3 or 4 of us, and so we went a couple of times, and we got to know those people. On the second cruise, there were like 15 people that were all in recovery. And so we wound up hanging out with them. You know, we're at the schooner bar, or we're in the casino at night, or we're just wherever. And we're running into these people, and they're like friends that we had no idea who they were before, but now we had this in common. So, you know, you begin to sense this camaraderie that goes on in these places. You know, we were in Germany for when we went over for Bogner, one of our customers, and Lizzie and I are looking for an English-speaking meeting, and you know, we found a meeting, and you know, in the middle of Germany, we don't speak the language, we don't know anything about the country, and we drive across the city to this place, and we walk in, and it's just like I walked into the same place as I would in Plattsburgh, awesome. New York. So you have this built-in community, and I will tell you, one of the things that most people don't realize about those fellowships is it was good to be there. I felt better. I got to talk to people, blah, blah, blah. I found out all the best restaurants, all the best non-tourist, these are people who live in this community. So you go there, and you have like a built-in tour guide. They're telling me the places to go see, the things you really need to do, the food you need to eat. It was like, and that's just another one of those things that I take for granted that you don't necessarily get when you go to Aruba, because you don't have that built-in kind of thing.
It's true. You know, that's a couple of times when I've traveled, I'm a Rotarian, and there are Rotary groups all around the world. And we were driving down this one highway, and I saw the Rotary sign. I'm like, I should find the Rotary meeting and go. They meet once a week. It's usually a lunch meeting somewhere, and that would be my instant in to a
you
community
can go
that I'm
to
affiliated
another
with.
place as a Rotarian?
Absolutely. You can be a visiting Rotarian, just like AA, and just show up at a meeting, and they welcome you in. You're part of that community and fellowship. I mean, fellowship is the key component to Rotary. It took us about a week of going to the same smoothie shop to get what you got walking into that meeting, because finally the people kind of relaxed and lightened up and knew that we were staying at this more residential section of the island, and we literally came by every day, sat down, had a smoothie and a toastie, and had a chat, and it was great.
So it's
more inside scoop.
Interesting dynamic, because you don't, like, it is one of the things that happens with people in recovery. First off, when most people come into recovery, they're not on top of their game. It's not I had a few too many drinks or a little bit and everything is good. Although there are some very wealthy or well-off people that are in recovery, no doubt. But most people are, financially in trouble, family in trouble, all that stuff. So the idea of ever being able to do anything other than just having a place to live and food to eat and a bed to sleep in is kind of foreign to people. And one of the things that we try to talk to the newer people when they come in is that, you can have this, like so they see me and I'm 31 years sober and I, got good business and a lot of friends and a happy marriage, and they see all that, but they're here and they go, I'll never get there. Mike's going out west to play golf for a week and he's going to the Grand Canyon and the Cardinal game and all that. I'll never get there. And I have to remind them that when I came in, I was living in a half a trailer with an old car and working 2 jobs, and so it's hard for people not to live right in that, what goes on at the moment. And so if you can give people, I think, a little bit of hope that they can have that. And, I have a couple of friends, and I won't tell you who they are by name, but, one of them, well, even our first resident or one of our early residents, a woman who came and lived with us and didn't really necessarily want to be in recovery and want to do that stuff. And you know what? Tried it, went with an open mind and tried it, and then she took advantage of everything we did at MHAB. She took advantage of the fitness coach, and she took advantage of the gym, and we employed her in the kitchen to start part-time, and then she went and took the recovery coach's job and got a job with one of the treatment centers here and moved out and got her own apartment, and is now in a really nice relationship with somebody in recovery, who's going to move in with her. And she made a comment the other day. I saw her about how she had gone to the mall and I think got her hair done and her nails done or something like that. And she was so excited about being able to do that. She's like, I have money to go and like pamper myself. It was such a great experience. And it's like when you begin to see that, people start to realize that they have an opportunity to have this other stuff and do this, really great stuff. I have another guy, young guy who I'm working with, and he's a golfer. And he's allowed to play with us because he sucks worse than we do. So we let him, we don't let any of the really good golfers into our inner circle. You have to be bad if you want to play with us. And he was so scared and to, see if he could fit in or whatever. And I forced him into going up and asked somebody if he can get in the group. And now he's in the group on this regular text stream. And the other day I played with him and he was just so appreciative. He's like, I never thought this would happen in my life. Like, this is so great to have this. And so I think it's important when we talk about recovery that we talk about all the really cool shit we get to do as opposed to just being in. And I'll say, wait, before you ask, I'll say one other thing. Some people say they used to talk about, I have to do this or I have to do that. And somebody a couple of years ago changed my MO with that when they said, I get to do this. Like, this isn't when I first came into recovery, I was like, I have to do this. I have to go see a counselor and I have to work on and it's like today I'm like, what a great gift. I get to do this. Like, it's become fun and enjoyable to be living this kind of a lifestyle. It's that, that just is cool.
I think, though, having seen much of your path for the past 15 or 16 years, I mean, it comes with effort, commitment to relationships, which take work, whether it's a relationship with yourself, relationship with others. I mean, you spend an awful lot of time, I think, not just glossing over life, right? And is that maybe a component to that I think so many people early in recovery are afraid of? They don't want to, it's not that they don't want to do the work, but doing the work is a lot of effort.
It's scary.
It's
scary. Yeah,
it's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of self-reflection if you really want to affect change. And I think
Yeah,
that
when you
that's a,
talk about soul searching and really getting down to the stuff that makes you tick as an individual, none of us, I don't think any of us, even non-addicts, necessarily like the idea of analyzing what makes them tick and what their flaws are and what their and things that they have to change. And so yeah, it's really tough, and it's ironic because you bring up a really great point that people, especially in early recovery, we're so extreme. Like we're like we're when we come into early recovery, we're like the people in Washington are right now. We're like on these really, really, really extreme ends. And those extreme ends are either I'm going to be so committed to recovery and changing my life that I don't ever do anything except analyze everything I do. Like, I used to hear people say, stuff like that. Like, and this is a terrible story, but I use it, so I'm going to say it. Like, the people who are so in their head about making sure that they're living right because they're so afraid of getting high, if they wipe their ass regularly with 20 little sheets of toilet paper, and on Tuesday they only peel 16 off, they're worried that puts them in relapse mode. Like, I got to figure it out because I regularly use 20 and now I'm using 16 and there must be something wrong. And there literally are people like that. And if that works for them, that's fine. I couldn't live like that. I couldn't live where everything that I do in my life was a thought that if I do this, I'm going to use. Like, if I drive down the different road today, that's going to cause me to use. Like, I can't live like that.
Did you have moments in that, like that in early recovery?
I think
where
early on, you're.
I mean, it's got to be like like I'm having some success. Whether you're a professional athlete, I'm having some success, so I've got to do these same, pre-game rituals in order to continue to have success.
You live in a little bit of fear. I think that part of it early on is if you get to a point where you're willing to get around a few people who have been clean for a while and you trust them, you begin to realize, and you just do what they ask you to do, and then you see that you get through it. That's how you do it. You don't have any experience, so you don't know. So there is that. But so you have this extreme people on this side that are so, everything has to be recovery. And then you have this people on the other side who are like, I don't really want to do anything recovery, but I want to hang out with you guys and just have the joy of it. And those two things don't typically work by themselves. You have to get more to the middle. And what we say to people, like I've helped a fair number of people in early recovery get and remain clean for a long time. And most of them, or many of them, become really good friends of mine after, and we hang out together, we do things, provided we have things in common. I have some that they don't want to play golf and I don't want to go be a biker, so we don't, we're not gonna hang out because we just don't enjoy the same things. Doesn't mean I don't love them or they don't love me or we don't help each other. We just not, it's not that kind of a friendship.
Can I ask you a question about that? You bring up a topic of trust, and for me, I hear you talk about recovery and kind of this leap into this new world. So how does somebody in early recovery get to a place where you have some ability to trust? Is it a leap of faith, Mike?
Yeah, so I think what happens is that, so there's a bunch of different stuff that goes on as the medical field has changed, as they begin to look at addiction differently and they look at it as a brain disease and all of those things. I think there are a lot of newer treatments that are coming out. And probably someday somebody will come up with a newer treatment that really does a great job with this. I don't know. I don't do enough research. But I think for those of us that are the old school people, we had to hit bottom. We had to get to that place of real desperation where it no longer was a choice. If I don't do this and I don't trust those people, I'm going to continue to do this and die or wind up in a jail cell. That's what's going to happen. In the new world, there's less of a push for hitting bottom. There's much more of a, we can stop people from using before they hit bottom and help them change. And I don't know if they can or they can't. Maybe that is truthful. Maybe there's a way to do that. For us, there really is that kind of desperation. So when you're forced into this corner, then it's not that you're trusting them, it's that you don't have any other alternative. Like there's not another, the alternatives are what I just said. And so you go to that. But none of us come in here with this incredible trust. One of the great lines that gets bantered around is, so when I was early on, I had this issue with trust. And I remember talking to crazy Ed LaFountain, and I love Ed. And Ed, you know, Ed would talk to me about that kind of stuff. He would say, Mike, look what your own thinking, what your own decision making got you to. You're a multiple arrested person. You were broke, you were homeless, your family had disowned you, and you couldn't hold a job. That's what you running your life got you. Why would you not trust somebody whose life is going better to kind of guide you down that path? And it's a hard argument to make. Like it's hard to say, well, they can't know better for me. So, and yet we still do it. We still fight. And I think until you get to that point. And then what happens, you said leap of faith. I love that phrase. It was a leap of faith, but I wouldn't say that it was a leap of faith off here down to there. It was a leap of faith from here to here first, and then from here to here. And that leap of faith was, okay, I've asked this guy, and he told me to do something, and I'm going to try it and see how it works. So then what happens is I try this first thing that he told me, and it works. Kind of like the guy I was telling you about playing golf. When I told him, just go up to him and ask him if you can be in the group. And he was so afraid to do that. And then when he did, and the guy was like, yeah, sure, give me your number, we'll put you on, we'll ask. Well, now the next time I tell him to do something over here, he has experience to draw on where he goes, okay, the last time he said I should do this, I did it, and it worked out really well. So I'll try again. And then before you know it, they get to this place where they say, okay, I've tried 8 things. All 8 things have been better in my life. So now I'm willing to jump off the big ledge and say, I'll trust him to, because so far he hasn't steered me wrong.
I think when we interview Allie on this program, I think she will really speak to that, because when she came in, she didn't want to have anything to do with traditional recovery. She didn't want to have a meeting. She wanted a place to live.
Yep.
She was carrying a bunch of burdens, you know, having been, I think, kicked out of the county in which she lived. They didn't want her back. I mean, she had really a very checkered past, and she really didn't have any place to go, but was not interested in doing anything.
Yeah.
And she took, I think, that small step leap of faith, one, because the meeting was right there at MHAB. You couldn't not just say, I'm willing to try, because all I have to do is walk across the parking lot and walk into the door. I mean, you don't, the only effort it takes is for you to get out of your, you know, out of your
dorm room. Be willing to leave your dorm room and go across the street. Yeah, you're right.
And so she, to me, is one of those most profound small step leap of faith people that now carries with her a joy of recovery, a joy of the success of you know, I trust the people that are in part of my circle because I've worked on these relationships. I trust the programs that I've been involved in. And she has so many fears that she had to overcome. You know, she was working on, you know, she lived on the system, and she was so afraid to try to get off the benefits that she had kind of come to know throughout her life. And now she really lives independent and free of most anything except her own effort to get up and go to work and to pay her bills and to live her life.
So think about this. You used the word that I think is probably my favorite word in the whole world, especially the world of recovery, and that's fear. And I will tell you that you think about what alcohol and drugs did for me and does for most people is it alleviated the fears that I had to go and do something. That's what it did. It gave me courage. It gave me, I couldn't go to, just think about like a high school dance. I couldn't go ask a girl to dance at a high school dance. I just didn't have it in me to walk across the room and do it. Couple, 3, 4 beers and smoke a joint, and I'll walk up to her and be the life of the party and say, will you dance with me? So it took care of that fear. You know, you went, I don't think you'd surfed before you were in Aruba, right?
Did not, never surfed.
So I'm assuming that on some level there was at least a little bit of fear. Maybe fear is not the right word, maybe it's anxiousness or whatever for both you and Santana. The difference between people like you and people like me is that before recovery, first off, I probably wouldn't have been in Aruba, but beyond that, if I were there and I had the opportunity to go learn to surf, I would have had to have a few drinks before I could do that. And if I couldn't have a few drinks before I would go, I wouldn't go. I would come up with a reason for not going. People like you in Santana don't, you struggle with I'm sure walking out there and the first time you get on there
Sure.
is a fearful thing, but you're
Don't
able
want
to
to
walk
get hurt.
through
You
it.
don't want to look like
Yeah.
an idiot. You know, oh my God, I'm not going
Yeah.
to be able to do this. It's going to be humiliating.
For
to-
addicts and alcoholics, we justify that the couple beers or whatever it is my drug of choice is will help me to get through this tremendous fear that I have. Otherwise, I won't walk through it. So of all the things that we talk about, I think fear, masked by a whole bunch of different emotions, whether it's anger or resentment or whatever, always comes down to that fear inside of me. And, you know, I went and spoke at, you know, the legislator meeting the other night about the nursing home where my mother is. And I think I speak pretty well in public. I think I make pretty good presentations. I think I'm okay. But it doesn't mean that 15 minutes before I'm there, I'm not scared to death and going, I'd rather not go do this. And I think early on in recovery, I never could have done that. The fear would have gotten to me, and I just couldn't have. And now today, I've learned, and the only way that I've learned was I took these little series of leaps of faith until I said, you know, now I can look back at my history and go, you've spoken public 100 times. And they've all been okay. Some haven't been great, some have even been bad, but nothing bad happened to you as a result of doing it. Like, I think that's a lot of that fear, is we think something bad's gonna happen and it's gonna cause me to go back and do this. And so I like when people are willing to walk through their fears, and even if they're not successful, they begin to realize that, or even if they are successful, wow, I can be successful and it's not going to cause me trouble, or I can fail and it's not going to cause me trouble. Like I can do it and get through it. And that's one of those things that people who are active and early on don't get. So that's why we push them so much to be active.
So I don't know if this is just exclusive to people that are in recovery, but it does seem to come up in a lot of mentorship arrangements that I have, people who fear both failure as well as fear success. Do you know what I mean? There is that, you know, what does it mean if you in recovery are actually, you speak in public and you actually have some success with that? What, you know, I think there's that fear of what's next.
I think that it's so funny because I think on some level that I've been at least a little bit successful or done some successful things in my life. And I don't think I realized how afraid of being successful I was until I became successful and recognized how afraid I was of it. Like, you know, early on, I'd been such a failure. I'd failed. Like, it was easy to not almost be afraid of it because I was used to it. It's like, this is who I am. I'm a failure. This is what I do. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm just going to screw it up and I'll make do and get by. And so, yes, when I started having some successes, I was afraid of it. And I was afraid of it for a lot of reasons. You know, one of them, and you've heard me say this before, for guys like me, you know, ego, I have a little one. Like, it's very small. It's not big at all. It's like pretty small. Ego can be a huge thing for people like me. And if I start having success and people heap accolades on me and tell me how wonderful I am and I'm, you know, shitting rainbows and, you know, whatever it is that you're doing to you know, think that you're this great guy, that's just as dangerous for me as failing, you know, because I start seeing myself differently than what I am. You know, at my core, I've been successful. Like, if you think about it, I guess we're talking societal. If you think about society's terms, I think that I've been successful. We run a decent business. We've helped a lot of people with employment and done some good things. And we started MHAB, and that helps people. And so society-wise, we've been successful, I think. And that's great for me as long as I remember that I worked hard, you work hard, the people that work for us work hard, and collectively we all put this together. For me, it's very easy to go from that to, look what I've done, look how great I am, look at how wonderful I am. And so I have to be guarded against that. You know, it's that, you know, the word humility is a big part of it. So as much as beating myself up for what a piece of shit I am is dangerous, so is believing that somehow I'm better than everybody else because look what I did and look at all the accolades.
Believe all your own press clippings, right?
It's my favorite phrase, you know, reading my own press clippings is a danger part for me. And you know, this is June 1st, and you know, the month of May is has been an unbelievable month for me this year. I mean, it really is just, beyond anything I could have imagined. The, Education Champion Award from Clinton Community College, and an honorary degree from Clinton, and I celebrate my anniversary this month, 31st anniversary,
yep.
And
it was a good month for you.
It is, and I always want to be appreciative of those things, but I don't want them to get to that point where I start reading my own press clippings and I start looking at this somehow thinking I'm different, because at my core, I'm still just a regular guy trying to live right and do the right thing. I'm
Every
not
day,
anything
one day at a time.
special. Now maybe I got some leadership qualities, or I'm blessed with the ability to affect change and stuff. And if I use those things for positive and good, and always remember that what I'm trying to do is, help people to be better, then it's okay. But if I read those things and start thinking somehow that I'm different or better, it's one of the things I think that it's been brought up to me in kind of humorous ways from a lot of people that, when are you running for office? What office are you running for, and stuff. And that's flattering. It's something that years ago I always thought I wanted to be. Like, I would love to be in politics. And today I look at it and go, that is a danger zone for me. It's not a, first off, I'm not sure that I could win. I still, I don't think everybody likes me, but it's less about that, and it's more about, I can see it. I can see how you get sucked in. The news media always wants to talk to you. They want to interview you. It's easy to start feeling like, look at me, I'm something special.
Well, I think that politics is the one arena that we think is a place where we can affect change, and I think that we, and especially you've come to the idea that it's important that what you do makes a difference in other people's lives. It's not just about us. It's really that which we're giving away, whether it's time, effort, energy, money, skill, opportunity, hope. And so in politics, you think, here's the place where I can really move the needle and change people's lives in the big picture, whether it's changing legislation, creating opportunity on a bigger scale. But the speed of government works at a glacial pace. And I think that anybody that has the desire and the ability to make change finds that apoplectic movement of government like so stifling that you can't be who you are, so you end up morphing into this gladiator. And I think that you would absolutely struggle with that. Now, either you would force your way to change and bend the entire legislature, or bend the entire assembly, or bend the entire Senate to your will, which is huge work to do. Or it would be damaging.
I think that in the end, I think that I would be able to do way less good for the people that I'm actually trying to help than I can do right here doing this the way we're doing it. And that's the part that I think of. For me, we need people to make policy. We need people who sit up there and do that. I'm not that person. I'm so much better in this arena where I can be down at the, that sounds terrible, I don't mean down at the, but in the trenches more than up there doing.
We have to be able to do the work.
Yeah,
we have to be able to change people's lives one life at a time in a way that makes a difference, because we're going to create great inertia.
Use Move the Needle on a recovery podcast. I love that. I love that. We just sent half the audience into relapse mode because Betsy's talking about needles on the recovery podcast. It's really cool. So anyway, I think that the point of today's was, I don't know, we didn't have a point. We just wanted to talk about recovery stuff. And I think for me, my life has to be fun. Like it has to be, if my life were shrouded in just talking about all the things that are wrong with me and always trying to work on myself and do that, I don't think that I would want to be in recovery that way. I want it to be, Lizzie and I have, so we go on vacation in September. We're going for 2 weeks out west, and we'll play golf in Utah and go down to the Grand Canyon. And, it's a great trip. But before that, August, I have tickets for Guns N' Roses August 3rd at Fenway Park.
Nice.
And then Billy Joel August 4th at Fenway Park.
Ugh,
and then Lizzie's stepsister's daughter is getting married that weekend. So after we're at Boston for 3 days, we'll head down to Connecticut, go to the wedding. So it's like, that's just cool. And we'll throw our golf clubs in, and we'll find good courses to play, and we'll play golf, and we'll, and all that stuff just as a result of being willing to make a change. You know, if you think about me, I'm 57. We'll be 58 this year.
Oof. Yeah. Let's not even talk about that.
And you look like you're in your 60s now. So,
jackass, I fucking hate you.
Did I just say that out loud?
So
you don't look a day over like 62 though, so it's not bad. You know,
thanks.
You look pretty good.
Jerk. I will say that whether you are in recovery or not, your life today is a gift. What makes it even better is the fact that you have walked across the fire of coals to get to a place where you can really, really, really appreciate this life that you and Lizzie have now, to be able to do the things that you do. I think you do them with an even greater joy because you lived much of your life on the brink of disaster.
Okay, wait, because you just gave me the great quote. You know how we have a quote? You just gave me the great quote for today, the quote for the day.
What's the great quote?
Yesterday's a history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift. That's why we call it the present.
The present.
You like that one, Brittany? That was pretty good, right?
Look at me,
being
your inspiration for thought and quote. I'm here for you.
Well, did you put last week's in yet, by the way?
What was last week's quote?
What did I come up with? Oh, yeah, we got to change it. It was... We're
putting the text over the video.
I didn't have one last week, or did I? Or did I do one that I already did before or something? So this week, that last week's was people who judge me don't matter. People who matter don't judge me.
That's a good quote.
Yeah.
I like that quote.
Today's was good, though. I like it. And you brought it up to me just by you talking about that. But what was your question? Because I was doing what Bryn said. As you were talking, I was thinking about something.
I know, you were completely not paying attention when I talked.
Right.
And, a lot of people like you do that. It really wasn't a question. It was really kind of a reflection on the fact that somebody that was living your life right now, whether they were in recovery or not, it's a great life. Right? What makes yours even better is that you and Liz have this level of appreciation that's so much higher because of the place from which you've come. And I think for people in early recovery, I think it's just, I hope that it's inspiring for them to see what's possible by the life that you are living, and the way that you're willing to share both kind of the where you've been as well as the where you are.
I think that the hard part of that is that, and this is what I struggled with when I first came in, we, people like me, have to do a better job of explaining to those new people that we were where they are when they came in. Because when I first came in and I was looking at people that had 10, 15, 20, 30 years and had this great life, it seemed so far out there that it wasn't attainable. Like, I looked at these people and said, they're so well put together. And then when I started talking to them and they would tell me their stories about how when they first came in, they were just like me. They were lost and scared and in financial trouble and all. But you don't necessarily see it if what you're seeing is this person with 30 years that owns a business, happily married. What you see is that. And so it's important that guys like me remind the people that are newer that it wasn't always like this. Like, I was in your position. It isn't this unattainable goal that you can't get to. Like, I was there. And the other thing that I remind people is, I remember when I was 26 and I came into recovery, and all the things that I thought I wanted, like all the things that I thought I was, going to have and goals. I'm not going to tell you a for example, but I'm going to tell you that because I want to finish the story.
All right.
So there were all these things that I thought I wanted to have and be when I grew up. And most of those things didn't come true, other than the fact that I remained sober. Yet I have tremendous gratitude in my life for what I have today. And I say that story not so we focus on the things that I wanted, so we focus on the fact that I don't have regrets in my life. And I don't like that when, for me, I don't live with any regrets. And I hear people talk about regrets. And I think that it's a hard thing to explain, because are there some things that I did when I was using that I wish I hadn't done? Of course there are. There's that. But I also know that my life is where it is today because of every turn that I took and everything that happened. If one thing had happened different, how much different could my life be? If I had taken one, and this may sound simplistic to people or they might not agree, but for me, I look at it and go, if I had taken a left turn as opposed to going straight, I could have gotten a car accident after taking that left turn, and my whole life, one thing. So I look at my life today and go, I have this incredibly great life because of everything that I've been through. So I don't spend a lot of time dreaming or wanting things. I try to spend a lot of time just living in the moment in the day. And it doesn't mean we don't plan or we don't do things, you know, from running a business. You have to have some planning, but it really is about whatever comes is going to be cool and exciting and fun. So I think, to answer your question without giving specifics, because I'd rather not do that, I always had an idea of where I would be. Like at 40, I'll be here, I'll be making this. At 50, I'll be here. And I think I'm at the place now where I'm going, the goal of life is to be enjoying the journey, not trying to get somewhere. Like it's the journey that matters. Like, you know, we look at, it's the journey. It's the, what am I doing day to day to really appreciate the life that I have and enjoy it? Because we're not guaranteed. Like, I think I'm pretty healthy. I think you're pretty healthy. I think we're probably gonna be around for a while, but there's no guarantee of that. And I don't wanna be at a place where I go, I was working so hard to get all this that I forgot to enjoy my life while I was doing it. And then I finally get there and all of a sudden I'm diagnosed with cancer and I'm gonna be dead in a year. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I spend my life trying to live each day like it's, like this could be it. You know, and not recklessly, like I'm not, you know, not living so much on the edge that I'm reckless, but I do understand that if, I think I said this, might have been to my father. I don't want to die today. I want to live for a lot more years. I think I'm pretty healthy. But if I die today, I'm okay. Like, I've had a great 57 years realistically. Were there a couple years that were pretty bad? Sure. But overall, I've lived a really great, full, exciting life. Like, and I think that's that point of not having, you know, not having regrets or any of that kind of stuff.
You know, before I went on vacation, I was working with one of our young employees that's not necessarily in recovery, but clearly in a challenged place. And you know, he's constantly talking about, you know, trying to figure out what life's all about or what he wants to do. And I said, you know, there's going to come a point every day where there's a decision you have to make. And if you can tell yourself, I just have to do the next right thing. That's
great.
it. Just the next right thing. What's the next right thing to do? And then if you can get that far, you're going to get there, wherever there is. There doesn't necessarily have to have a destination as much as get yourself into a mind space where I know I'm at a point where I'm going to decide whether I'm going to go over and talk to that guy that's selling drugs or I'm going to go with this guy that's, you know, going fishing. I mean, whatever the, you know, whatever the decision point is.
Such a judged society. Like, where, you know, you're supposed to go to college and you get a degree and you go get a career and you find somebody to marry and you have children. Like, everything's like supposed to be this way. And I think what a lot of people are beginning to learning is life is just life. It doesn't, there's no set pattern necessarily. I try to live right. I try to just do the next right thing. And if I do, I have this great existence. And for the most part, things are terrific. You know, I heard a speaker once years ago spoke about that kind of stuff, and she was at a rehab, so you can watch it on YouTube, but she was speaking at a rehab, and she said, she had like 35 or 40 years, and she said, if I could give you my 35 years in recovery, I wouldn't do it. And so these people in rehab are like annoyed. They're like, what an arrogant bitch, and you know, she wouldn't do this. And then she followed it up with, because I wouldn't want to rob you of the incredible journey that you're going to experience over the next 35 years of your life. And that's the key. Like, it's not about getting somewhere. It's about this incredible journey that I've been on, this incredible ride that I've been on that has so many highlights and lowlights and memories, and it just has been cool as hell.
Do you think functionally the recovery program that you're in, or recovery programs in general, work to help people establish a foundation of gratitude or begin to exercise gratitude in thought and action? Do you think that that's
absolutely?
And I
100%.
think that of all the things that I think that when you speak or when you speak to me, we always come back to this piece about gratitude, and that in early recovery it's really hard to be, you know, it's hard to be grateful for the fact that you're still alive, because most people that have been addicts or alcoholics were really just on a path to death. They just knew they didn't care about gratitude. They cared. So
I was the same way. You know, I honestly didn't expect to live past 30 years old, 35 years old, and it wasn't that I had a death wish, but I cared very little about it. I mean, you know, drinking and driving and, you know, violent situations and places that I hung out and people that I was with, there was no value on my life. I didn't place any real value on it. I just was like, whatever happens, it's fine. I don't care.
People that struggle with depression or anxiety disorder who are really struggling to find both themselves as well as a purpose, you know, you get to this really dark place. And so foundationally, if you can find a foundation for gratitude and to find small things to appreciate, and I think that's what I've watched, I think my daughter appreciate that what recovery has given her is really a sense of gratitude. I think that there's so much strength and power in gratitude in terms of giving you a foundation to stand on and to grow from. I think it's kind of a big
I would agree with you that, you know, gratitude is certainly a huge component of it. The other thing I think is that a really great friend of mine said years ago that being in recovery isn't about feeling good, it's about living right. And I love that statement. Like it's, you know, so much of my life when I was using, and even in recovery, was spent trying to feel good. And being in recovery is really just what people like me are trying to do is live more like you've lived most of your life. Like we're trying just to be normal members of society. Like we're trying to live.
He called me normal.
You know, I do. Well, think about this. You know, if you think about like most people who aren't afflicted with this, they live pretty much the way that I live now. They have some type of faith, usually. They are able to hold themselves accountable for the things that they do. They try to be honest and forthright as much as they can. They try to help other people where they can if other people need help. Like those are all components of people in recovery. We just didn't know how to do that. Like you guys didn't need a playbook. We needed a playbook. We didn't necessarily.
I think we probably could.
Probably some of you could use the playbook too. Yeah.
And then we need a little help doing the right thing.
But I think that that's a lot of it is that we just didn't know. We just were. I've said this before. You've heard me speak 100 times. Like I was a taker. I just took. Like my whole life was just about taking from people, and it wasn't because I didn't like people or I just didn't care. I was like, I just want to get high. That's what I care about. I care about one thing. I don't necessarily care about anything else. That's what I want my life to be. And you know, so when you get sober and you start to recognize that, that's when you'd start to say, you know, now I want to be more of a giver. What can I? Rather than what can I get, what can I give? You know, didn't John F. Kennedy say something along those lines? Like,
ask
what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country, right? Isn't that that's a great, and you know, forget about it, country, world, whatever. Like what, you know, how can I be something that's good for other people? Like what can I contribute as opposed to just what can I get?
You know, I think about MHAB and
like whiff them. What's in it for me?
What's in it for you? Whiffy.
What's in it for them?
I don't get whiff them, I get whiffy.
What's in it for them?
I think that, you know, I think about MHAB and I think about the things that we do in our business and sometimes, especially on really hard days, and I had some hard days there before I went on vacation trying to get my mind right, but I know that we ask ourselves, is my action going to make something better than the way that I showed up to it? Whether it's somebody's life, my experience with somebody in my office over you know, is what I'm doing making it better for somebody or something else, or is what I'm doing making it worse? And I'm trying, you know, and I think that that's gratitude. I think that that's taking and giving something away as opposed to taking it for yourself.
Most of what you're doing is not making my life any better, so hopefully it's helping other people.
You'd be lost without me. You can say all your.
You sent me a text that did you miss me or whatever, and I said, I didn't even know you were gone. I think that was my response. I did. Last week I missed you a little bit, but I missed you in like a bad way. I was cursing you out because I had to. I had to do a lot of shit. I'm like, where's Betsy? This is what she's supposed to be doing. She had done better when she left.
Good for you.
So do you have any final thoughts you want to talk? I don't even know what we talked about. Brittany, what did we talk about today?
You talked about recovery, being grateful, having a great life, and not having to do things, but getting to do them.
Brittany, are you grateful?
I'm very grateful.
Awesome. Telly? You grateful?
Yes.
Good man.
Yeah, I think you guys tasted good.
I love how we bring our people in to talk to
I
them
know.
every
I
time we
think,
ask
well,
them
you know,
questions.
they're part of the heartbeat of
Let
what
me
we
tell
got
you
going
something
on.
before we go, though. They were stars last week.
Were
They
they?
sat right here. The two of them were fat. You know, Telly, I know Telly well enough, and I know what he's going to do. Brittany said more in the hour that she was sitting here than she said in the whole time she worked with us.
I
She was
cannot
just like,
wait
when
to see
she was
what
like,
you were
I didn't even
able
need
to
to ask her.
create.
She just went off on that. It was like,
Well,
great.
the edited version don't actually have me or Bryn in it.
That's
I
great.
love that. I love that.
It was. I had a ton of fun with you guys last week. I thought it was really cool. I'm excited. I'm excited to see that out there.
Can't wait to see it.
It was.
Hey,
very
you should
good.
talk about your sweatshirt so that we can.
What do I
try
got?
this.
I got it's what's it say? It's way too peoply outside, and you know, this is my, and it's funny because I wear this, and you know, I do have this kind of
Hard.
demeanor, I think, that
exterior.
comes across as like uncaring and not liking people, and
Gosh, and nothing is farther from the truth because you are such a.
but I
people
really
person.
don't like annoying people. Like, I still haven't figured. I ask myself every day, why do I like Betsy? She annoys the hell out of me every day, and yet I still like her. You know,
Really?
It's like I'm
Really?
like I just don't get it
Annoy you every day.
every day,
You're
and
so
yet
lucky to
yet I
have
still
me. You
and
are
yet I still
so
like you.
lucky
So,
to have me.
yes, so it's way too peoply outside,
And that nothing could be farther from the truth about you, which is really an interesting piece to you.
I know
An
it really
interesting
is.
paradox. about
Listen,
you.
I think
love
that we've fully established in these podcasts and before that I am. My mother used to say to me, when you were born, they broke the mold, meaning that there can never be another one of you.
That's
and I
a
think
fact.
that
Oh,
is
Barbara,
probably
you
a
are so
very
right.
a very true fact of what she said, that I am certainly
You're a one of
somebody
a
who
kind.
marches to the beat of my own drum and does my own thing. But well, this was cool. Welcome back from Aruba.
Thanks, honey.
It's
I'm glad
nice
to be
to
back.
it's nice to
I
see
missed
you.
you all. You know, I know you think you go on vacation and you don't, but I mean, you missed my.
Didn't I
community.
finally tell
missed
you
my
what?
family.
Real quick before we close, I think you sent me like some email or something. Oh no! So our accounting team asked me to approve, you know, payables because
Yep.
you usually do it
Yep,
when
yep.
you're here. And so I had Natalie come in. I went over them and I approved them. And then like 2 hours later, you send an email saying approved. And I think I sent you back a really nasty email like, "Will you be on vacation for Christ's sake? I got this. We're fine. Like, leave me alone. I don't stop responding to emails."
I figured if they
I'm
included
like,
me in
whatever.
the email, they wanted me to know something, so I always pay it. I try to pay
Okay.
attention. So thank you for covering me, by the way. I appreciate you being here, taking good care of our team. I know you did.
You know what? I get so much shit done when you're not here. It's
trust
pretty
me,
amazing.
I
Like I really
know.
do get. I'm like, and even the people who work there say, "Mike, you're way happier when she's not here." Like I don't know why that is, but it's a very bizarre kind of experience. Because I like having you here, but the other people, I
Everybody's
think,
averting their eyes.
I think the other people like it better when one of us is gone. I think they actually do.
You know, there's a little bit. We're a lot to take care of. Let's be honest. We have a lot of needs. You know, you call a meeting on a moment's notice all the time.
I'm
when
pretty low
everybody's got
maintenance.
Oh
I'm pretty low.
my God. Of all of the adjectives, low maintenance, never in a million years would that be associated with you or your name. Never. Sorry, pal.
All right, so thank you all for watching.
Thanks for
we
joining us.
have effectively, we're done with the hospital. Tell Michelle LeBeau that we're all done with the hospital. And Greg
Clearly
Freeman
something
didn't
must
come.
have happened. I'm sure it was
Aren't you a board
crisis.
member?
You know.
You would think as a board member you could hold that board member card, but no, you couldn't do that.
I get no respect. I don't know what to tell you.
You're like Rodney.
We'll
Hey,
find out.
last
What?
thing, are you playing golf this Friday?
No, not. I have to do a Rotary thing. I've got to
I
do
think
the
we're good.
fishing derby.
So the quote is, one more time, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present.
The present.
Love that line. So thanks for watching today, and I don't know what the hell we're doing. What are we doing next week? Do we even have it scheduled?
Well, now that we'll have to figure out what happens with the reschedule of the hospital. But I think that you guys built the calendar out another couple of weeks. We'll figure it out.
We'll get somebody cool in here next week. So thanks for tuning in today. We appreciate it. COVID out is no longer the line.
Isn't it MHAB out?
Is it MHAB? Is that what we did?
Or is it recovery out? MHAB out?
So I think here's what I'm going to ask. We don't have an out phrase right now. So to our followers, and I think we do have a few that are regular podcast members, we would ask you if when you watch this podcast, if we haven't come up with a out yet and we're still fumbling over our own shit because we don't have an out, please send us a nice email that tells us what you'd like to use as a phrase for an out, and we might use absolutely.
If
we'll
we
give
end
you
up
a shirt.
using your
Yeah.
out phrase,
Yeah.
we'll send you a free MHAB shirt. But I like MHAB out. MHAB out. Try it out.
So for now, we're not going to use MHAB out. We're just going to say thanks for watching, and please give us some information because we would love to use that. And this is Mike Carpenter, affectionately known as MHAB Mike.
Thanks for joining us today at Recovery Uncovered. No matter where you are in your recovery journey, or if you're supporting the recovery journey of a loved one, just know today is the first day of the rest of your life. Visit our website at mhab.org.
And if you want to become an old-timer in recovery, don't use and don't die. This has been Recovery Uncovered.